what are the next steps and how do we get Russia to the table?
Sure. Thanks a lot, Zani, and thanks, Victor, for the invitation, and thank you to all Ukrainian soldiers for what you do for protecting Europe. Before I begin, let me just gently remind on the Arctic question that NATO was just expanded with a country that has 1 million individuals trained in Arctic conditions, and that country is Finland. So I think we can do a lot on Arctic security. Now, my 2 points, one on the peace process and the second one on the narrative of the war. On the peace process, I think we are in a good place in the sense that the United States, Ukraine, and Europe, or more specifically the coalition of the willing, is on the same page. Ever since Jared Kushner came in with the help of the work of Jonathan Powell and many others, we're now in a concrete stage where we're looking at somewhere between 5+2 documents which have to do with security guarantees, the prosperity package, which Larry has been working on, a sequencing document, and many others, and the 20-point plan, of course. I think on this particular situation, we're going to be in a position whereby we have full agreement between Ukraine, the United States, and Europe on what I would consider to be a good package, which has, I think, the elements for a lasting peace. But here's where I come to my second point, and that is that I'm not convinced that Russia will approve this. And this is the worry that I have, and that's why I fully agree with Mark that this is not over. Right now, what we need to do is to focus on the today and the near future and how we can provide and sustain and help Ukraine. Now, on the narrative of the war, this is something that I'm a little bit baffled, both in the international discourse and perhaps in some of the things that we hear also coming from the United States. Let's make this clear. Putin has failed in every and each one of his strategic aims. Number one, he wanted to take over Ukraine and make it Russian. He failed. He will not take over Ukraine, and Ukraine will become a member of the European Union. Number two, he wanted to prevent the enlargement of NATO. He got 2 substantive military powers into the alliance and doubled his border with the alliance because Finland joined. Number 3, he wanted to project power around the world and in the region. Look what's going on in Central Asia. Look what's going on in the Southern Caucasus. Look what's going on in Iran. Look what's going on in Syria. Look what's going on in Venezuela. It's not exactly a success story from the perspective of the Kremlin. My final point is to say, from a military perspective, there seems to be this narrative that Russia is winning. I fundamentally disagree. In the past 1,000 days, Russia has advanced a maximum of 1 percentage point of Ukrainian territory. Today, the cost of that is 1,000 dead soldiers per day. That's 30,000 roughly per month. And this is dead, not only wounded, and on the Russian side. In Afghanistan, in 10 years, 20,000 Russian soldiers died. On top of that, the Russian economy is suffering. There's zero growth, no more reserves. If inflation rates continue to multiply on the level at which they have been this year, that will be 30% of inflation this year. Add to that 16% interest rates. I don't think that the argument that Russia does not want to end the war because it believes that it can advance holds. I think the argument that Russia does not want to end this war because it is too expensive for Putin to end. He will not be able to pay the Russian soldiers. So the big dilemma that we right now have is that how can we force Russia to end this war? And there are only 2 things that we can do. 1, continue to provide Ukraine with everything it's possible, and 2, put more economic pressure on Russia. And then we will see that Ukraine will have won this war at the end of the day. Thank you.
Let me move over to the president of Latvia, who's an old friend of Ukraine, has been at this breakfast many times. There is now talk of fast-tracking Ukraine's membership into the European Union. How usually this process takes a long time. Understandably, there are many conditions. There are many legal, economic reforms that Ukraine has to do, or a country has to do, to become the member of the European Union. How is this going to work with Ukraine?
Well, thank you very much. I want to congratulate you for this upgrade, because I feel now like in interrogation room with the bad cop and the good cop asking all the questions. But coming to your question, I do believe, and I very much agree with Alex, that we must work to ensure that Ukraine becomes the European Union member. Having said that, I think that we need also to reckon with three elements. Number one is Ukraine itself, because membership in the European Union is both strategic, political, but also it's merits-based. And the reform process, fight against corruption, justice reform, also the alignment of many of Ukrainian economies to European standards is going to be an issue. Number two, and I think that's going to be also the moment of truth for all 27 EU member states, when we will have to convince our publics, when we will have to face many interests from agriculture to industry, and then of course it's going to be a very, very tough work, taking also into account what is happening in many of the European countries from the internal political point of view. From point of view of Latvia, we will do our best to get Ukraine as fast in the European Union as possible. And number three, the third element, is I do believe also that when we look at the Ukrainian membership in the European Union, we probably need also to address this from the broader perspective. Normally, we have seen the European Union as political union, as monetary union, as economic union. But if Ukraine enters the European Union, I do believe it's also going to make European defense identity much, much stronger. And this is something where I would say, when we talk about Ukrainian membership, yes, we will have a lot of questions. We'll have questions about quotas when it comes to goods and services. We will be having a lot of discussion about reforms. But when we talk about that, let's keep in mind that Ukraine in EU makes European Union also much stronger from security and defense point of view, with the largest fighting army in Europe, with all what they have done. And also I want to use this opportunity to say that when we see those soldiers fighting right now, they also understand that they are keeping the whole of Europe out of the war of aggression that Russia would probably be able to launch as we speak. That's where the strategic choice for me is obvious. Ukraine must be in EU, but I also understand it's not going to be a very easy political debate across European capitals.
I'd like to turn now to the Prime Minister of the Netherlands to continue this conversation about the challenge for the EU. Prime Minister, the President of Latvia has just laid out what Ukraine needs to do, but also what the European Union needs to do.